Hello everyone. It is Jackie with Pocket of Preschool. Tonight is all about the Discovery Center. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk all about Discovery. And before I do that, I want to know how you have your Science Center and your Math Center set up. Are they separate? Do you have a Science Center and then a Math Center? Do you have Discovery with Math and Science combined? Do you have like a Science, a STEM, and a Math? Do you have a Math and a manipulatives and a Science? Let us know. That way we can kind of know what everybody else does, because it's fun to see and learn from each other too. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take you on a tour of my Discovery Center, and then I'm going to sit down and chat all things Discovery. So I'm going to flip the camera around and then we'll go to town. So this is my Discovery Center. Ignore this on the table because this is stuff I'm going to show you for the live tonight. So this is my Discovery Center. So I'm going to kind of back up a minute. So I have my sensory table in the Discovery Center, and then I have a shelf with all kinds of science, and then I have my STEM drawers, my science table, and then I have over here my math shelf, and then in the middle is a table where all the kiddos can sit at, but I have all the stuff I'm going to show you on it tonight. And I know everybody wants to know where everything's from. So these drawers are from Michael's, and make sure you buy them on sale because they're expensive, but they're really, really nice and sturdy. This is a small lac coffee table from IKEA. This is the large lac coffee table from IKEA. These are just the IKEA shelves. And then my husband made my sensory table out of PVC pipe and a Sterilite container. And I just found a tutorial on Pinterest, and he made it for me since they're so expensive. So in my Discovery Center, I'll start with the sensory table. So I do have the sensory table, and I change it out every theme. So this year I'm doing 2-week themes. I know some people do month themes or week themes, but I change it out for every theme. Right now I just have something that's easy to clean up since it's back to school. So I just have colored noodles, little containers, tweezers, and bottles. And I think later in August I'm doing a whole Facebook Live all about the sensory table. So I'll go into details about the sensory table then. But yeah, I change out the actual sensory table filler, and I change out the tools. And if you go to the top of this post, there is a whole, it says like freebies, and then there's a whole post on sensory tables items if you need a filler. But underneath, I just have a basket with dustpans, so that way they can help clean up. And then I have a visual on the floor. That way they can sweep all the items in here, and they have a visual spot to sweep it in, and then they can put it in here easier and then help clean up that way. And obviously I'm still helping clean up. And then I have my Discovery Center signs. These are in my TPT store. And then just like all my other centers, I have my small clipboards, and they just use these for anything. They want to record data, they want to draw what they're observing, and yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things they use these for, and they just have them in here ready. And I just have blank paper, and then I have my little caddies from the Dollar Tree, and I just have markers and crayons. And then your Science Center needs to have natural items or items from nature. So I just have some rocks, and I always stick a little book in there because they'll grab it and they'll read it as they have the rocks out. And this is from like a super old 1980s bulletin board set I found somewhere, maybe even at a garage sale. So yeah, and then all these labels, they are in my TPT store if you want to grab them. I also have seashells, and you can find seashells at the dollar store. And then I just have a book, and this one's a board book, but it's just my shell book, and it's a Smithsonian book. So you can also do pine cones, sticks, rocks, anything from nature, but Science Centers really should have something from nature. And then I have just some tabletop blocks, and then I have my STEM. I can build cards in there. That way it inspires them to build something new and something different. And that way they're more, they're planning out and they're building with a purpose rather than just like kind of building whatever. I'm just starting that beginning engineering with that. And then I have magnets, which is kind of a staple for classrooms. And then I have things that are magnetic in here and then things that are not, like this block and pom-pom are not magnetic. But then other things in here are. And then a magnet book, sorry. And then I have just some of those magnet blocks in here. And then I just have some tubes. I know some people put their light table in Discovery too. I have a light table, I just don't have it out yet since it's the beginning of the year. And then, oops, somehow that got in there. I have safety goggles, since scientists wear safety goggles. And then I have puzzles in here as well. And then in the Science Center, you want to have something living. So I have this plant, as you can tell, I don't have the greenest thumb, but this is a spider plant, I think it's called. But make sure when you have your plant, make sure you check and make sure it is not a poisonous plant. That way if the kiddos would eat it or ingest it on accident or on purpose, if they would take a bite of it or something, they wouldn't get sick from it. And then magnifying glasses. And then What is a Scientist? I love this book. And a lot of these things in my Science Center, if you want to find them on Amazon, if you go to the top of this post, there's a link. And then these are my STEM drawers, which I'll talk about in a minute. And this is my science table. In my science table, I change out for every theme. So like right now, it's just kind of back to school. And actually, we haven't made this yet. I made this one as a sample for my curriculum, but this isn't on my wall right now. We actually are gonna make this as a class. So right now, this is actually off. So this is what my science table looks like in my classroom right now. Because I think it's really important that the anchor charts on your wall, the kiddos need to be a part of in making. That's probably not going to stay up, but that's okay. So I think it's just really important that these charts or anything on your wall, the kiddos take part in. And that way when they're looking at them, they know what they're about. They know they had a part in making them. So they just will pay attention to them more. And then they're not just like wallpaper on the wall. So we're going to make this as a class next week. And it's okay to have your classroom bare a little bit sometimes if you're waiting on making a new chart or something. And then all of this is actually in my Being a Scientist pack in my TPT store. So yeah, so like right now we just have some rocks and we're just practicing using those science tools. So we're just practicing using magnifying glasses. We're practicing using the scale and tweezers and the microscope. And we're talking about how scientists sort and how they draw what they find. So basically we're doing all of these things that scientists can. And we're really working on that right now. So that way they know when we go to do apples, they know things they can do when there's tools at the Science Center. And then I just have this read aloud and I'm actually gonna read this and then we'll make this chart together during circle. And then over here is kind of more of the math shelf. And this we actually made today. So I kind of keep this, I usually keep it, it's kind of like a spot I keep our graphs we make as a class, but this one, or any kind of math anchor chart we do. So we just measured our shoes today with cubes. So yeah, so we did that one today and I just hung it up. That way there's their names on there and we did it together and that way they can reference that and then maybe they'll measure their shoes independently or they'll measure other things using the cubes once they see that chart. So the bottom of my math shelf, I keep a lot of those typical manipulatives. So I always have dice, and these foam dice are from the dollar store. And then I always have colored dice. That way if your kiddos are working on one-to-one correspondence, they can just roll a color dice and just get out one, or maybe you're working on colors. These I just got at the teacher store. And then I also have, your typical dice that go up to 6. And then these are dice that just have 1, 2, and 3 on them. Because some of my 3-year-olds, they don't have one-to-one correspondence yet. So they're just working on counting out 3 objects. So I have those. So that way you can differentiate for all your learners. And then I also have a dice with numbers. So that way if they can count up to 6 with one-to-one correspondence, then we can work on identifying some of those numbers. And then this is actually a random bucket of like random counters that I've found and collected over the years. So yeah, those are just fun because they'll sort and they'll play with them and use them for different colors and things. And then I have these ice cube trays, which I love these ice cube trays. Sorry guys, I'm gonna crouch down a little bit. And we just use them with pom-poms. You can find them at usually the dollar store or Walmart. They're also on Amazon. Sorry, that's my chart. It just fell again. But I just put these gator tweezers in, and these are just from Amazon. They look like a little alligator, and they just pinch, and they can put them in the containers. And you can also use a dice with this, so they can roll a dice, and they can count out that many pom-poms. Or I had a friend today, and he just was making patterns across the top. So you can use these for patterns. You can use them just for fine motor. You can use them for sorting by color or counting. And then they're really fun because you can kind of poke if they get stuck. You can poke the pom-poms out. And these are really fun on the light table too. So those we have out actually all year because they'll play with those all year. And then I just have a basic path game, and these are a freebie on my blog. So if you go to the top of this Facebook Live post, you will find that link there. These are just some foam beads, and I have them in math because they're shapes. That way they're exploring shapes, and they're doing fine motor, and maybe they would sort them. And they can do really whatever they want with these. They don't have to string them. They can build with them. They can sort them. They can sort them by color, by shape. And then I have these shape cookies, which I think I got like 10 years ago. They're on Amazon. If you go to the top in my Amazon links, they're there. But you can find them on Amazon. But these are awesome. My kiddos love these. They are probably one of the best investments I ever made. I think they're like $10. But they love these shape cookies. And they're really fun to put in dramatic play too if you're doing bakery, and it's a fun way to add shapes. And then I just have geo boards with just rubber bands. And then sometimes in my, if I can find them, sometimes in some of my manipulative boxes, I throw in shape cards. So that way my lower level kiddos, they'll just be using the geo boards, and then maybe my higher level kiddos, maybe they want to make a triangle or a rhombus. And these cards are in my, they're in my 2D shape pack in my TBT store. So that's really fun, but that way you can differentiate for your learners. So your lower level kiddos can just use the geoboards, and then maybe your higher level learners want more of a challenge, so they can make shapes with the geoboards. And then counting cubes or Unifex cubes. Those are so fun for measuring, making patterns, and kids love them. They're great fine motor. And then this top shelf, it's actually empty right now. I just put it out so I can give you guys kind of an example, because we're still on, we'll be on day 3 on Friday. So this shelf is actually empty right now, but the following week I'll have stuff on this top shelf. But I put out my counting stew. I always have a counting stew here. I have a little label that I need to tape. It fell off. But my counting stews are in my they're in my Teachers Pay Teacher store, and I have them for almost every theme. But basically, they're basically making a stew. So they take a pot, and I have a whole blog post. If you go to my blog, you can read all about it on there. But basically, they follow the recipe. So they would count out 6 bear counters, 4 clumps of Play-Doh, which are just pom-poms. And I do have idea lists for all the things that are needed for your stew. So that way, maybe if you don't have something like if you don't have any Legos, it just gives you a couple other ideas. So they would count out 6 counters, 4 Play-Doh balls, and then 8 blocks. And then they would just mix it up, and they would sort it back. And there's also addition boards for kinder teachers who need to kind of take it up a notch in the spring. So they're so much fun, and the kids love them. They're actually like loving them. My 3-year-olds use them, and even if they can't read the numbers, they'll make up their own stews if they're playing them independently. We play these stews a lot for small group, and then I put it out in the center for each theme. And then on the other side, this is kind of where I keep my themed printable like math games. So like this is in my school centers pack. So it's just extend this pattern. So they would just use the crayons and make the pattern, continue it. So those are really fun. And I don't label this part of my shelf because I change them out. And once the kiddos get to know our classroom, they know that anything that's kind of related to our theme goes on this top shelf. And then this is another printable math game from my school's back to school or school themed centers pack, but it's just kind of a cool cat, kind of like a Pete the Cat game, where they basically are just counting out buttons. So they can either roll a color dice, so they would just put one blue on, there's another one, and I get buttons from the dollar store, Walmart has some now. So they could use a color dice if they're just working on one-to-one correspondence, or maybe they're working on counting out from a set. Like here's 1. Okay, well let's pretend I rolled 3, and then maybe they could put 3 on. So yeah, so that's another fun game in my school centers pack. So I know some of you guys are asking, do I change out the actual manipulatives on the bottom? And I do. That's what we're gonna kind of sit and chat and talk about now. So I change out the counters a lot based on our theme. Like these are some pet counters. So I'll change these out based on our theme. And then another favorite counters I love that I got off Amazon are veggie counters. Because veggie counters you can use for like health and nutrition. You can use them for a grocery store. You can use them for like fall or a harvest, or when you're doing like farm in the spring or in the fall, depending on when you do it. So these are really fun counters for those. Or maybe even like at Easter theme, you could even use like the carrots for, so yeah. And somebody is asking how many kiddos do I have per center. So I limit my centers. If you go to my blog, and I can pop it in here in this post after I'm done too. I do five kiddos, or sorry, this year I do 4 kiddos per center, and just because of the size of my classroom, and we use colored clips. And that way I only have 4 kiddos per center. They kind of have to not pick the same center all the time, and it just gets them engaged with other kiddos too. So yeah, and I'll put a link all about how I do center management at the bottom. Something else you can put in that's cheaper, like you don't always have, I know these counters are what, sometimes like 30 bucks a pop. And they get expensive, especially if you're a first year teacher. Now that I've been teaching for 13 years, I've kind of collected things over the years. So I have a big collection to come from. But mini erasers are a great way to buy cheap and easy manipulatives. I know the Target Dollar Spot has them. These are from Target Dollar Spot last year. But I think like right now they have like cats and dogs or something. But you can also find cheap mini erasers sometimes at Five Below, or at, I know sometimes Oriental Trading has them. But yeah, but these mini erasers are perfect too, because they're little, which when they're using all the little stuff, they're using those pincer muscles, so they're strengthening their fine motor while they're playing math games too. So these mini erasers are great, and they're a cheap alternative. Like here's some space ones I have, and they make it super engaging just by changing out the counter, or whether you're using mini erasers or like real math counters. It just makes the math games more fun and more engaging. They can use these in those little ice cube trays too. So yeah, some other fun staples that I kind of put out during the year are colored dominoes. So maybe maybe nobody's playing with the shape foam beads. Maybe I'll put out some colored dominoes. And I know everybody asks how I change out my labels. So if I literally got this off of my storage shelf, and I have a label on both sides. Sorry, it's loud. And what I'll just do is I'll peel this off and put it on the shelf, And then I have 2 labels. That way I'm not having to go through my label box and find everything. That way I just grab one off one of the ends and I put it on the shelf. So colored dominoes are really fun for the math center. These translucent shapes are really fun. I just got these last year off Amazon, but they're great for the light table, or I didn't have a light table last year, and they were really, my kiddos loved these. It's just kind of a fun alternative to pattern blocks. And pattern blocks are awesome, don't get me wrong, I love pattern blocks, but they don't have all the traditional shapes. And these actually have like half circles, so they can like build shapes with these too, and they have like quarter circles too. So that way they are building shapes to make new shapes. So those are fun. And then they have like rectangles in there. But these are really fun. And if you go to that Amazon post at the top, they're linked on there. Another fun manipulative I love are just colored chains. Sounds simple, but they're really fun. You can measure with them, you can count with them. You can like put out like magnet numbers, which are another great manipulative for the math center. Put out the numbers in a number line, and then they can like put 1 chain by the 1, put 2 chains by the 2, put 3 chains by the 3. And you can also use chains to measure. So chains are really fun. A kind of a staple. Like when they kind of get tired of geoboards, I kind of switch out the chains, and I'll put the chains there. And another thing I wanted to say was it's important to kind of cover all the different areas of math. So you want to have things for counting. You want to have manipulatives that build those counting concepts. You want to have games that build those addition and informal addition and subtraction games. Or concepts, and then you want to have stuff on geometry and shapes, and then you want to have manipulatives for measuring, and you want to have stuff on, or manipulatives for collecting data and doing graphs. And I change out a lot of my themed printable games. I can't talk tonight. Themed printable games on the top. Those I use a lot of. Oh my goodness, guys. So a lot of my themed printables, that's how I make sure I hit those targets. So like for example, this is how I organize my themed printables. Blah, 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 blah. And I do have an organization post where I open one of these up and show you. But in here, I keep my math and literacy centers. And then these are the direction pages. So that way I remember what I have. So when I'm doing space, I might put out this rocket number game, and I'll put out this roll count add game. So now I'm hitting a adding objective, and I'm hitting a counting objective. And then maybe I'll put out this space patterns game. So now I'm hitting patterns. And then I have this shapes clip it game. So now I'm getting a shapes objective in, and then this one are counting puzzles. So that way I kind of hit all the objectives for each theme, or maybe not all the objectives for each theme, but maybe I'll hit 3 or 4 for each one. Like that one didn't have a graphing game, so maybe the next theme we do, I'll put out a graphing. I'll make sure to put out a graphing game for that theme. Some other fun manipulatives that are cheap and easy, because let's face it, teachers, we don't have a lot of money, and we are stocking our classrooms ourselves, right? Popsicle sticks, they're so fun. You can build shapes. You can use them for counting. You can color them and turn them into puzzles to hit that spatial reasoning objective. And I just found these recently, and I'm super excited. They have like half-size popsicle sticks, which is very exciting. I know, the things teachers get excited about, right? They have like half-size popsicle sticks. I found these at like Michael's, and that way they can build different shapes with them. And like I'll just put out this shapes ring, which is in my 2D shape pack, and they can build different shapes. And granted, my 3-year-olds may be just building anything with them, and then my higher kiddos, maybe my higher kiddos are actually building actual shapes with them, and they're identifying the shapes. Maybe my 3-year-olds are just attempting, and that's okay. And then another fun thing are these little cars from, I think it's The party stores have them. They're fun for the light table. But I forgot to put this link in. I have a number mats that are free on my transportation blog post, and they draw the number with the car, and then they can make the number with the Play-Doh and the 10 frame. So I forgot to post those, so I will post those in after this is over. So during center time, it's totally their choice. So they pick a center clip, and they go to that center and they play what they want to play. Now, if I put printables out, are they necessarily going to use them? No. But one thing I do before centers is I tell them, and I'll show them any new games really quick. Like, it'll take like 1 or 2 minutes. I'll be like, hey, in Discovery, I put out these space rocket puzzles. And I also put out this space game, this literacy space game in the library center. That way they see it, and maybe they'll want to play it more. Maybe it'll make it exciting. But I use the math-themed printables, like the space ones I showed you. I use those a lot for small group and morning table time, and then I'll put them out on the shelf, and so they can play them again independently if they want. And a lot of times they will, because they do love those themed games. What is your best advice for kiddos at different levels? So kind of like I've been saying, like put out different dice. That way they can, you can hit different levels for kiddos. Like put out a color dice for little bitties. Put out a dice with 1, 2, 3, and then put out a dice up to 6. Have a dice with numerals on it. So put out kind of those, and that's an easy way to differentiate all of your counting games, is just by changing out the dice. Kind of like this, like maybe you're building shapes, or maybe you have popsicle sticks out, and then maybe put a printable out with it to kind of get some of those kiddos to a higher level. And maybe like your 3-year-olds, maybe they're gonna build diamonds, where maybe your pre-K kiddo or a higher level kiddo or a higher level 3 is gonna build a crescent. So kind of give them the harder pieces. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. And kind of with patterns, like your 3-year-olds or your beginning, your lower level kiddos, they're just gonna make an A-B pattern. And then those higher level kiddos, they're gonna make harder patterns. So give them the harder pattern cards, like A, B, B, or a, B, B, A pattern, things like that. Okay. I'm going to tell you some more about science, and then I'll tell you about STEM drawers at the end. Well, science and math, I think, so the reason why I have Discovery together is, one, we did it when I taught full day for my school district. We had Discovery together, and I just loved it, because when I was setting up my own preschool, I was going to divide it, and I'm like, well, it goes together so well. Like a lot of the things on my science table, like the scale, for example, that's also math. So a lot of science in math, I think it goes together so much in STEM, so I kind of have it all in one. That way, if they're doing a science experiment with apples, if they want to measure the apples, they can grab those counting cubes because they're right there. So that's kind of why I have Discovery all together, because math and science go so well together. And scientists use a lot of math tools to when they're experimenting and things. So I know I talked about measurement a little bit. We measure a lot at the science table, and I think kiddos love to measure at this age, and counting cubes are a great way to measure, but I also love to use rainbow rulers to measure. So that way kiddos are using a real ruler to measure, but they're not really looking at the numbers. Let me give you an example. So let's say we're measuring this rock. That way they'll know to line it up. That way the bottom has to line up together. So they're learning how to use a ruler, but they're just not using the numbers, and that's okay. So that way they can so each inch, I just color a color block. Super simple. I've done this for probably a while. I'm getting old. I'm not gonna tell y'all how long I do some of this stuff now, but that way they're learning how to use a ruler, just measuring it up, and that way they can count. They'll be like, it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it's 3 big. And they probably won't say inches, but that's okay, but they'll be using a ruler, so they're using measurement tools, which is a goal for early learners. But another goal for early learners is to use informal measurement too. So you can measure with anything. They can measure with mini erasers, so maybe they're gonna measure this rock with mini erasers. So maybe you want to put mini erasers at your science table, and maybe it's you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars big. Or if it's something tall, I know a lot of people measure with cups. Or you can measure with counting cubes. So don't think of measurement just as a ruler or like, I put these out. I put tape measures out too because I love these. And they, because they have the numbers on them. So my pre-K kiddos can usually read the lower numbers on them. And they just think they're so cool using, you know, big people tools. And I also have bean rulers, and I'll put a blog post up for this. So these are bean rulers. So basically I took a line of beans and then I covered them in packing tape and then I put numbers on them. So now they're measuring with, by repeating objects, which is a Common Core standard, and an early learning standard for a lot of states. But have you ever measured with beans? Like they slide and they go everywhere and they don't really line up. But that, oh yes, I did. So these, I think I colored with, so if you use washable markers, just know it'll wash off if you're doing anything with water at the science table. So use permanent markers to make your rulers. And then this, I just colored with a permanent marker or wrote the numbers on with a permanent marker as well. So that way they can measure and it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 5 beans big. So bean rulers are another fun measurement tool, and they're really fun. You can just like stick them in your marker cup. Nothing like super, you know, you don't have to have a special tub for them. You can just pop them in a bucket. Oh, you can't see it. You can just pop them in the bucket at your science table. And then you can also use timers if you're like seeing how long something takes. Maybe you're doing like like an ice experiment and you're seeing how long it takes for something to melt. These I think were in the Target dollar spot, but these are just like, I have like a minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, and 5 minutes. So you can use sand timers as well as a form of measuring, because you can measure time, which is one I think we forget a lot. And then I actually just got this. I went on a little buying spree this summer. You'll hear me say, I just bought this year. I also bought one of these scales. So you put the objects in and it kind of will tell you the number, kind of like a grocery store scale. And this I just got, sorry, I was reading something. What did I put the beans in? Okay, so the beans, so take a clear piece of packing tape, line your beans up, and then like fold it this way, fold the packing tape over the beans this way, and then fold the packing tape up over it that way. And then I just covered it with another piece again and then rolled it under. But I have a blog post with a kind of a tutorial on how to make them, so I will pop that into when I'm done. All right, so yeah, so I always have had a balance scale, but it's also fun to have different types of scales. So they can kind of experiment with different exploring measurement, weighing things with different types of scales, using different science tools. So that's really fun. I'm gonna scoot some of this over here. Give me 1 minute, I'm gonna get organized. So I can kind of get over here a little bit. Okay. So over here, I have a stool. Over here in my science center, I have, and they're on rollers, so I can roll it over. I have my STEM drawers. So these I have over here, and in my STEM drawers, I have all the little things to build with. So like in the top drawer is little Legos. And then I have a label on the outside. And then like I just have a thing of popsicle sticks. So I have like the little popsicle sticks, and then I have the little like dowel rod popsicle sticks, and then I have the big and then like the normal size. And then I have pattern blocks in here, and then I have those small like solo cups that you can get at the dollar store. So that way, in the block center, they're building and engineering with bigger blocks, but I think it's really important for our little learners to build and explore and engineer with little things too. But in the block center, they would be building on the floor and kids would run over it and stomp on it. So I put this in the Discovery Center, and it's just incorporating STEM in another place in my classroom as well. And then at the top, which I don't know if you can see, I move over. So at the top, I keep my STEM. I can build cards at the top, so I kind of give them a challenge. And I just keep a whole bunch so that way if they want to look through them and they want to do a different one, they can. These are my STEM I Can Build pack in my TPT store. This is the basic pack, kind of like the starter pack. It's got like a little bit of everything. It's got monuments and like community things and caves and all kinds of fun stuff. But I just have it on house since it's back to school. But I use the top kind of to display the challenge. I keep our sketches in here. That way if they want to draw or write their building, they can. And then I also keep on the top, sometimes I'll put little mini erasers up because mini erasers are really great if they're building with popsicle sticks. Mini erasers are a really fun little add-in to just kind of make it more exciting. They're you can put, like if you're building with pattern blocks, it's really fun to add mini erasers. Like during like fall, they'll be like put out some mini eraser apples, and they can build a little apple orchard with the pattern blocks and then put the little apples on. So you can just keep these, and I usually just keep them in, this is just like a clear cup, nothing fancy, just like a clear cup or like thing from the dollar store. Or you can use counters, like these are those little people counters. I think they're called me counters. They're like a math counter, but these are really fun to use for STEM challenges. So if they're building with the pattern blocks, then they have little people that are kind of just the right size for STEM. And then these me counters also have little kitty cats in them. So if you're doing pets, it's really, or pets, they're great for a family theme. So yeah, so you can just keep, you don't have to keep a ton, just keep like a handful and you can just pop them up there. And then you can keep the rest of your, that way you keep them right up there. And then the rest of your counters are in your math center. Oh, and then I do want to say too, so some of mine are empty, like my orange drawer doesn't have anything in it. So at the beginning of the year, I only have 4 of my drawers full with items. And that way, I can slowly add new things to the STEM drawers. Like maybe I'll add like rocks and then like cars in another one. Or, you know, just different things like those little like brain flakes are really fun for STEM. Or maybe there's something else fun I find at the dollar store I can put in here. Or straws, like I can put straws and tape in here. Or maybe toilet paper, or no, don't use toilet paper rolls. Paper towel rolls cut up, because toilet paper rolls can sometimes have little germies on them. But yeah, that way I can slowly add to these throughout the year, and it keeps it exciting. And if they get bored with something, I will change it out and put something new in. Yeah, and if you have 3-year-olds, and maybe you're worried about like a choking hazard, because some of these are like little pieces with the little Legos, just put in those Dupo Legos, like the bigger Lego size. Those will work too. And if you want to do 2 drawers of Dupo Legos, you can do that. And how we kind of manage this in the classroom is they just literally take it out and they just put it on the table, and then they build. They can take a challenge card and they can build, or take the manipulator to the table, and then they can just put it back when they're done. And if they want to mix 2 drawers, like maybe they want to use the sticks and the cups, that's totally fine with me. So yeah. So that's a little bit about my STEM I Can Build drawers, which are super fun. And they're great, awesome fine motor work too, because everything is little. How often do I change out my STEM drawers? So I say until they're full. I bet it'll take me till at least end of October, if not November, to get them full, because I don't want to add things too fast and then like they don't use things appropriately. So I'll just put maybe 1 or 2 things out in September. Maybe I'll put 2 more drawers out in November. So I super slowly add things to my STEM drawers. And you can also put challenges, and I've done this before too. You can just put a challenge card in each of the drawers. So I know some teachers do STEM drawers for morning work. Sorry, you can't see. So you can just literally put a challenge card in there, and you can even put a little cup of manipulatives right in the drawer. That way they can take this out and go to their table, or go to their spots. If you are a flexible classroom, flexible seating classroom, they can take this out, take it to their comfy spot, and they can build there. So you can put the manipulatives in the drawer too, and the challenge cards in the drawer if you want to do it that way. It's kind of what works for you, what works for your kiddos. Sometimes if they're not playing with the STEM drawer, something I'll do for table time is I'll literally take one of these and I'll put it out on one table, and then maybe I'll take out the Legos and I'll put it on another table, and maybe I'll put out a STEM challenge on each table, like one of the cards. I'll just put out one card at each table, and that way they will kind of get engaged with STEM again. Because sometimes we have so many things in our classrooms, they forget you have things too. So if you see they're not playing with something in your classroom, like if they're not playing with something out of a STEM drawer, just pop it out for a table time activity, and that will kind of like spark their interest again. So yeah, or maybe you have a new STEM challenge or you have a new manipulative out, you can do that too as a way to kind of introduce your new STEM materials. There is the Being a Scientist pack. And I just want to quickly show you what they look like. So each pack has labels, and then it has teacher pages to kind of help you. And then there's actual real photos of it set up in a classroom. And then it has your anchor charts and different ways you can use them, along with all the pieces. I just keep all my teacher pages in these page protectors just so I can reference them super easy. And then there's always vocabulary cards, and you can either make a poster or if you can kind of see back here, like I made a poster with this one, but I might actually start hanging them on like a string so I can change out the vocabulary cards really easily. And that way too, if I want to use the vocabulary cards for a read aloud, like maybe I'm gonna read Being a Scientist and I really want to talk about predicting and observing, I could bring those cards over with me to circle, and that way they're not like attached to a chart. So you can just put them on, kind of like you do in the writing center, or I do it in the block center. Just put the cards on a ribbon, and then you can just clip them up that way. And then I just clipped up the chart too, so it works if you want to change out your charts too without putting holes in your wall. And then it just has there's always activity mats, so kind of something to put on the table to kind of get them going. And it does have different ways to use them, like you can put them in like a dry erase pocket, like here, and then I keep all the printables behind it. And then there's always science journal pages and discovery pages to go with it, so we can get them writing about their discoveries and recording their that data and that research. And then if there's more anchor charts, or there's a class book, a read aloud, and you can print it bigger or smaller, and it usually goes with the vocabulary cards or the activity cards that are in there. And then there's also a parent note that you can send home. That way you don't have to type anything else up. Like here's the parent note for Being a Scientist. It has a thing, it just has a little explanation. It has a little like super quick connecting activity that might take like 5 minutes. And then there's some vocabulary words, so that way they might use some of the vocabulary at home too. And then there are also little, I put these on the table, and that way they're kind of prompted to do something with the manipulative. So like this one says, use the magnifying glass to look closer and then draw what you see. So it kind of maybe gets them using the tools a little bit more appropriately, or just using the tools in a different way. All right, you guys have a fabulous night. I will talk to you soon. Bye.